Hello everyone, this is now my 7th video I have made on The Wire, and recently I put out a video called The Most Tragic Character in All of Television, and pretty much in this video I explained how I thought that Wallace was the most tragic character in The Wire and in all of television, and this video has a lot of great replies from everyone, so thank you for that. And in these replies, I see a mix of 3 different names that pop up of also being tragic. These names are Duquan, aka Dookie. Poor Dookie, I feel so bad about his nickname. Randy, and Michael. And I agree with everyone that said that these are also tragic characters, and they rightfully are. That being said, I wanted to break these characters down in addition to Naaman Bryce, who was also in the core 4 characters introduced in the beginning of Season 4. I will go over these characters, but we'll leave out some basic details as most of you guys probably already know these basic details. Before I get too far into this video, I also want to give a mention to a few other kids in the group, but are more minor characters. Donut, who is the expert car thief, and Kennard, who is the youngest of the group and one of the most savage. There are also 2 other people in the screenshot right here, and I don't know who they are. They're not that important, but if you know who they are, leave them in the comments. In all the seasons of The Wire, we are introduced to a new cast of characters. Season 1 obviously doesn't really count because it's the first season that we're meeting all the characters. Season 2, we are introduced to the port workers and the Greeks, of course, aka the Connect, so on and so forth. Season 3, we are introduced to the thieving politicians. Season 4 is obviously the 8th graders and the teachers, which primarily consists of the majority of the clips in this video. And in Season 5, we are introduced to the newspaper and media crews. Obviously, out of all these groups introduced, Season 4 had the best cast of characters, and a lot of the comments would definitely indicate that on my videos. We first meet Naaman, Michael, Randy, and Dookie in the first episode of Season 4. They all hang in the same group of people and go to Edward Tillman Middle School, and they are all 8th graders. We get to see them still in the last days of summer break, catching pigeons and then fighting a group of people who jumped Dookie. Well, I guess you could say they threw piss balloons at them instead, but same thing, they got back at them. It was all in good fun. And obviously this was all back in the day when kids would really beat the shit out of each other. While this is all innocent child behavior, we will slowly see these characters' lives drastically change. Also want to go over these characters in chronological order if I can, but I may jump around, so please be patient. We learn about all these characters' family situations, and it is terrible for all of them, to say the least. Dookie, however, in my opinion, has the worst problem out of all of them, as his nickname, Dookie, alludes to it, because he smells like Dookie, and his house had the water shut off of it. He doesn't shower until his math teacher, Mr. Presbolewski, allows him to use the school shower. His family members, specifically his mom, will steal and sell his items for money to get drugs. I'll play a clip right here.
You live near Duquan Weems, correct?
Dookie?
I want you to take this to his house.
Them clothes won't stay clean long.
Make sure you deliver them just to Duquan. Not any of the adults in the house, just Duquan.
Is Dookie here?
What's that? That's what Duquan, right? I'll take it to him. Gimme.
Hey, Crystal.
Miss Donnelly said to give you these.
Okay, I'll be right down.
This includes anything the school administrative staff tries to send home to him. He is also usually the person who is the butt of every joke in the group that they are in. That's just how it is. Dookie is always the butt of every joke and gets picked on a lot. Michael has another bad situation, as his mother is a dope addict and doesn't take care of him and her other son, Bug, who is younger than Michael. I think Bug is in the 3rd grade, so I think that's around like 8 or 9 years old. Later in the season, his stepfather will come home from prison, who is Bug's dad, and Michael does not like him one bit. We will get more into this about why this is, but I'm going to keep going over the family situation. Randy finally has a foster mother after living in group homes for quite a while. His situation is looking up for him, but it was still bad for him in the past, and sadly does get worse for him in the future. Naaman arguably has the best situation out of the 4. Even though his father, Weebay, is in prison, he is still the richest out of all his friends, and his mother is still on Barksdale payroll. Obviously, this all soon changes as she is cut off after the operation stops. We learn that his mother is actually very toxic and even forces him to work a corner to get her money instead of actually getting a job herself. These are pretty much all the characters' family situations. We will go over the changes that they have throughout the episodes, but the next big event that happens is, it seems innocent, but it will have consequences later on. And that is, little Kevin tells Randy to tell Lex that there is a girl that wants to meet him at the playground. What's so wrong in that? Randy is also an inspiring entrepreneur and sells candy around the neighborhood and in school. So little Kevin asked him to do him this favor and said he had to get to work and he couldn't be off the clock much longer. While this may not seem that important now, it is because Lex ends up getting killed by Chris and Snoop. Also, I want to mention that little Kevin is an absolute idiot for telling Randy what happened to Lex and gives him extra money for him to keep quiet. He should have just never said anything at all, and this one's on you, little Kevin, and it cost him later on.
You do like I said?
Yeah.
Yeah, you must have. Because the nigga went up the block. He ain't never come back down. Chris and Snoop? Pow.
What?
Look. Just be cool, all right?
And per usual, in the last scene of this episode, we see Randy sitting on his stoop late at night before going into bed, and he looks very distraught and angry. In The Wire, the last scene of each episode usually gives a good indication of something important that will happen later on, or a major event, and this is a major event, and we will see how this plays out later on. The next major event that happens is more for Michael than the other kids itself. Marlo is giving out money to the kids for back to school to let his name ring out and for other ulterior motives. Anyway, all the kids take the $200 except for Michael. This leads Marlo to question Michael about why he didn't want the money. Michael, being like he is, stays quiet and just stares at Marlo, then just calmly walks away. While this may not seem like a big deal, this only leads Marlo and his crew to wonder about him even more and even respect him. Michael and Naaman also join the same boxing gym. We don't see the exact moment when they join, but we do see them in the boxing gym. Cuddy, the main trainer at the boxing gym, is a good influence on the kids, but not so much their mothers. Another story for another day. Cuddy used to be a member of the Barksdale crew and was in prison for a while before getting out, and he completely transformed his life around. He also sees natural talent in Michael and wants to train him. Michael also starts working Naaman's job with Bodie on the corner temporarily to get some money. Bodie mentions that he has potential and doesn't know why he's thinking of quitting.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You don't rattle. Yo, you come up under my wing, youngin', you ain't gonna do nothing but rise, man. I don't even know why you thinking about quitting.
Look, man, like I already told you, I'm all the way repaid. And tomorrow's school.
Marlo also sees Michael working on the corner and even says that we need to keep an eye on him and to possibly recruit him. Later, we finally see Chris and Snoop approach Michael to make him an offer. This is what Chris has to say to him.
Hearing good things about you. So you straight up, take care of your people. Not begging no handouts. Though we always in the market for a good soldier. And you see one we like, we take care of the situation. Take him in, school him, make him family. And if you're with us, you're with us. Just like we be with you all the way.
Now, Michael has no intention of joining them at this current point, but as we know, things change later on that kind of force him to do this. In episode 6, we see a big shift change for two of the characters in Randy and Naaman. Well, a shift in the downward direction, of course, because this is what this video is about. Naaman's horrible mother gets cut off from the money that she was receiving from the Barksdales. So, instead of getting a job like she should, she forces her 8th grade kid to work a package off of Bodie. Like I said, I cannot say enough bad things about Naaman's mother, but we will continue. We soon see Naaman start to catch heat for where he sets up his operation. A rival corner from down the street sends a message to him. While the message isn't too bad and he only gets hit in the face, it could have ended a lot worse because they were carrying a gun on them as they showed in the video. And also Cuddy comes by to save Naaman, which is good on Cuddy because stand-up guy. Come on now, it's Cuddy. Randy also finds himself in a sticky situation as he played lookout for 3 classmates that had a bit of, oral acts in the boys' bathroom. The girl that went in there with the two guys later says she was, essayed even though she wasn't, and the police start looking into it and an investigation begins. Randy is about to get questioned by the principal, and obviously, 8th grader, you don't want to get in trouble, and especially since Randy just got a new foster mom, he doesn't want to be disappointed in her, even though he didn't have anything to do with what this girl accused him of doing, and the other kids too. So he tries telling his principal, like, hey, I know about a murder, because that's like the only thing he can do to try to get out of like this awful thing that the girl accused him and the others of doing. And the principal obviously tells the police about it because she has to. This is also no good for Randy because the girl also withdraws what she said later on, so he technically didn't have to tell the police anything. Randy honestly doesn't have any information that could put people away. He only has hearsay information. Randy tells police what little Kevin told him and about how Chris and Snoop are turning people into zombies. Although the detectives are shocked by what they told him, and they don't really believe him because he's saying like they're making people into zombies, even though they're just killing them in the house. It's murder, blah, blah, blah. But he tells them that, and they don't really believe him, so they decide to talk to little Kevin, obviously. Also want to mention that this whole thing gets screwed up for Randy because of Herc, and it's not really the main focal point of this video, but Herc questioned Randy in a way that made it obvious that little Kevin knew that Randy talked to him, if that makes any sense. And little Kevin pretty much knew that Randy snitched. It is definitely hard to decide if Randy is actually a true snitch or if the circumstances around him contributed to him talking to the police. Randy did snitch on his other classmates for minor things such as graffiti earlier on, to the principal of course, but not to the police, which is kind of different. Randy also didn't give the police anything that would have convicted anyone because it is all hearsay and there's no true evidence that they can grab. Maybe circumstantial evidence at most, but nothing concrete. But obviously on the streets, it is snitches get stitches, so word is put out that Randy is a snitch and things will start to get messy, but I'll come back to this soon. The next big event that happens is Bug's dad coming home from prison and is now staying at the house with Bug, Michael's mom, Michael obviously, and now the stepfather. As we know, Michael does not like this one bit, and Michael is more of a quiet, calm character and doesn't really say too much, but from his facial reaction and the following day in school, we can see he is really distraught over this situation. You may just be saying, oh, he just doesn't like his stepfather, and that's not just the least. There is strong evidence throughout the show that points to Bug's father being a Nashville predator. Take the hint, and I will go over this a little later. The next day in school, Mr. Preswolewski calls Michael over in math class as he notices him really disengaged from everything around him. He tries to ask Michael if there's anything he can do to help him, but Michael, being how he is, does not open up to Mr. Preswolewski. And this is really sad because we see multiple times Michael pushing away some help. However, the teacher probably couldn't help him in the way that Michael wanted him to help him. Yada yada. On the walk home from school, Michael asks Randy and Dookie if they ever called social services on their mother. And they pretty much tell him that he should not call social services as they could potentially split him and his brother Bug up. And obviously Michael does not want this to happen. So he feels he is left with no other option but to turn to Chris, the person who offered him membership into the Marlowe operation. So Chris listens to Michael's situation and offers to kill Bug's father, and this will eventually happen. Now, the reason I said Bug's father is a Nashville predator is the manner in which Chris killed him. Now, we all know that all the killings Chris and Snoop do are very calculated and involve the victim being put to rest in a vacant house. But the way in which he kills Bug's father was by a vicious beating, which may have made it more personal for Chris, and Chris asked him directly if he liked young boys, but he denies these allegations.
You like boys, motherfucker?
What?
Boys, you like fucking them?
We also see later on in the series, Bunk Moreland question Michael about his father and says,
yeah. Look at you. Not even blinking. Not that I blame you after what this heinous motherfucker did to you.
Anyway, I just wanted to mention there are multiple things pointing to this, and one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up, because that's why he does not like his stepfather, just so everybody is on the same page. So Bug's father is brutally beaten by Chris, and Michael will soon have to fulfill his obligations of joining up in the gang. Naaman gets arrested for slinging drugs, and Officer Carver arrests him for it. However, Officer Carver is nice and lets him not go to booking if he can call a family member. Obviously, we know his mother is horrible, and she is nowhere to be found or get in contact with. So he asks to see if Mr. Colvin, his teacher and Carver's former district commander, can pick him up. We know later on that Mr. Colvin will end up adopting Naaman, and this will benefit his life tremendously, because we all know he was never made out to be a gangster. I'm doing my best not to mention every episode name because I get repetitive, but I want to shout out episode 10 in season 4 because this is the last episode we see the group together doing something as a whole for the last time. They decide to get back at Officer Walker, who is pure evil, and he's just in a load of horrible things like steal off Randy, his $200 that he was given. He breaks Donut's finger after he wrecks some cars and stuff, and he's just a corrupt cop who is no good. So they decide to set him up by keying his car and then throwing yellow paint on him. However, Michael does another thing and steals his ring, which used to belong to Marlo, and also used to belong to Omar because Omar stole it off of Marlo originally at the poker game. Either way, I just wanted to put that out there. And they all played their part. Some were lookouts, but Naaman and Michael did the most. This is also the same episode when word is finally put out that Randy snitched. And Randy does get jumped, but Michael stands tall and tries to help him the best he can. Dookie was also there, but instead of helping like any good friend would, Dookie runs and gets a teacher. Randy got beat up pretty bad and has to stay home because he is a target and this is no good for him. It's also very unfortunate, like I mentioned earlier, that this happened to Randy because Herc messed things up and didn't give the information to the right detective, and instead was more focused on trying to find his camera. He also questioned Little Kevin, and Little Kevin asked if Randy told him this. I should mention that the information that Randy does give police does lead to, I think, around the 25 vacant bodies getting found in all those vacant homes, including Lex and Little Kevin. This is also when we see the group start to split apart. Now that Chris and Snoop did Michael that favor, he is now in with them and has to learn to be a soldier. And to say the least, they are very impressed with Michael, more so than anyone else that they have in their gang. We will soon see him quickly move up the ladder, and he will do this very quickly. Dookie gets promoted to the 9th grade, which honestly sucks for him because things were a lot better for him in the middle school. To make things worse, when Dookie and Michael are walking home from school, he finds out that his family was evicted. Dookie has nowhere to go as no one from his family is there and didn't give any indication of where they could be. However, Michael comes to the rescue for Dookie and offers him to stay at his place, as now that he's in with Marlo, he has his own apartment with Bug. Dookie also decides not to go to high school and work with Michael instead, but this does not last too long because Dookie isn't made out for the streets, so Dookie pretty much stays home and takes care of Bug. Naaman's mother forces him to cut off his hair because he is always being spotted by the police and been picked up a few times by them, so on and so forth. As this happens, Kennard tells Naaman that the package was stolen, but we all know this is a lie, but Naaman doesn't take it too personal at first. I should also mention that Naaman was storing the package at Kennard's house as well, in his basement. Michael tries to convince him that he needs to go get his package back off him, to teach him a lesson not to steal off of him. But Naaman is very hesitant to do this. Kennard was also talking a lot so Michael does beat up Kennard, but Naaman doesn't want to get his package off of him. This is where Naaman is pretty much out of the game, and it's for his benefit, to be honest. While at the same time, Naaman is also very weird because he won't stand up to Kennard, but the next day he picks on Dookie, so Michael decides to stand up for Dookie.
Just working. Yeah, you working it like a gump.
And slaps Naaman around a little bit. Cuddy breaks up the fight and tells Michael to get out. Although I think Michael was in the right here to slap Naaman around, it's kind of where the group starts to fall apart. And we really only see Dookie and Michael together out of the original 4. because Mr. Colvin will soon convince Weebay, Naaman's father, to let him adopt Naaman. And he finally gets to grow up in a house where he has people around him that actually care about him. Randy, on the other hand, has his house set on fire because he's still a target, and this injures his foster mother, who needs to go to the hospital. So Randy has to go through another round of the group home system. And as we know, Dookie and Michael live together with Bug, and Dookie also takes care of Bug. Cuddy tries to apologize to Michael for the way he handled things back at the gym, and said he was wrong for what he did to chase him off like that. He also tries to say that the street life is not for you, and that he needs to come back to the gym. But Michael completely shuts down and doesn't talk to Cuddy and just completely ignores him. This then leads to Cuddy being shot in the foot. And this is where the things are at the end of Season 4. In Season 5, we don't get to see Randy and Naaman as much, as they only get a little bit of screen time, but I will cover them near the end of the video about what happens to them. I also want to mention that they do show Randy getting jumped at his group home because they saw him being a snitch. I also want to mention that this is probably the longest video I have made on this channel, so please make sure to subscribe and give it a thumbs up, and let's continue. Michael soon gets his first kill, and although he is respected, Snoop doesn't like how he asks too many questions.
If Marlo knows he ain't sucked dick, then what the fuck he care what Junebug say? What anybody say? Why this boy gotta get dead just for talking shit?
Cause he got a big motherfucking mouth, that's why. And you need to stop running your own mouth, youngin'.
He also at the same time disobeys orders because Chris tells him to shoot anybody that comes out the back. And he doesn't, as there is a young kid around the age of his brother running out the back of the house after his mother and possibly father have just been shot by Chris and Snoop. While Michael has killed people in the past, and I think he only killed one other person, this is still a traumatic incident for him. And Michael is very shooken up after this incident, and Dookie, being the good friend that he is, asks if he wants to talk on it, and they do for a little bit. I also want to mention the significance of the scene that they are at right now. This is also where the original four used to always hang out and was kind of like their old stomping grounds. You can even see on the graffiti all their names. And since they have no school tomorrow for, well, Bug obviously, he doesn't have any school. Dookie doesn't go to school and neither does Michael. They decide to go to Six Flags for the day. This is great to see because they can finally act like kids for once, and it should be known that they are around 16 years old, the same age Wallace was when he was killed. This is sadly the last time we see them happy together, and things soon change for the worse. Marlo's operation comes crashing down, and a lot of members are in jail. Marlo believes someone snitched, and because Chris is in jail for something that he did for Michael by killing Bug's father, that leads Marlo to believe that Michael snitched, even though he didn't. So Marlo arranges for Snoop to whack Michael. Snoop arranges to meet Michael, but Michael can tell that something is not right. So he takes what he learned from Chris and Snoop and puts it to use. He sets up on the person that they are supposed to meet the next day, sees that Snoop is already talking to him. She even shakes his hand. This confirms Michael's suspicions. So when they go to meet up at night, Michael tells Snoop to pull over because he has to pee, and pulls out a Uno reverse card on Snoop. They have this famous conversation, and that is the end for Snoop. After this, it is no longer safe for Michael, as he is a target, and things are too hot for him where he goes. So he has to make the hard decision to take Bug to go stay with his aunt. We sadly see the two split apart, and a lot of tears are shed. Next up, him and Dookie must part ways. So Dookie asks for Michael to drop him off where he found work as a scrap person. This environment is not good for Dookie, and Michael tells him this. Most of the people that stay at this place are addicted to drugs and shoot up all day, as they pretty much just sell stuff to feed their high. This is also no different than Dookie's own household, which he fought to escape. Also wanted to come back to Dookie just to give a little bit more insight because I noticed I've left some things out, so here they are. We also see Dookie in Season 5 try to apply for a normal job where he runs into Poot, someone that used to work at the low-rises with the Barksdales. We see them have a chat, and since Dookie is not old enough to work there, he pretty much walks out without a job. So this pretty much just leads him to this only option of going to where he went. Although I thought that the writers could have done a better job for Dookie and actually gave him a real job instead of what happens next to him. Dookie had no indication in his story that he was going to do drugs, as he was always more of the nerdy kid of the group. And to make this even worse, we see him take advantage of Mr. Presbolewski by asking him for money to enroll in a GED program, which Dookie doesn't do. This makes Dookie look a lot worse at the end of things as a scammer and a dope fiend. It's likely that Dookie is going to be the next Bubs, one of the main characters throughout the series who was always addicted to heroin. The writer should have gave him a good ending and did something like they did for Poot, where he was someone that worked on the corner but then went off to work a regular job, a 9-to-5, something like that, instead of, turn into H like his parents did. We get to see Michael one last time before the end credits. But this time he has a new career path. And to go along with that new career path, a shotgun. And he is robbing a tire store where Marlowe used to bank his money. Michael even shoots the guy in the foot and gets himself a fat payday. I'm also not sure who the other person is with him. I believe it is Spider, someone who helped run his corner and box with him back at the boxing gym. Anyway, Michael is looking to become the next Omar. We see Randy one last time, and I forget what episode it is, but it's one of the final episodes of Season 5. And we see one of the detectives try to talk to him about the murder of Lex, but Randy already learned the hard way about talking to police and acts tough in front of them to show other kids that he is tough. Sadly, Randy is still in the same group home that we last saw him in. However, I believe Randy's entrepreneurial instincts will make him somewhat of a prop Joe. After all, everything points to Randy being the son of Cheese, because they have the same last name, and Cheese is also Prop Joe's nephew, so that would all line up. And the character out of the bunch that gets the best ending is Naaman. We see him Season 5 during a debate club competition, where he's speaking about AIDS. We also see his parents who adopted him there in Colvin and his wife, and then we see him one last time in the final episode where he is out on the porch or stoop eating breakfast. We see Donut drive by in a stolen car, and they acknowledge each other one last time before he drives off and almost crashes into another car. Naaman is living the life that all of these characters wanted and should have gotten in a traditional home. He is likely to go to college like Colvin's other kids and make something of himself. It was quite the change from his mother forcing him to work the corner. Also, shout out to Weebay, Naaman's father, for making her give him up. Because if it wasn't for that, and Colvin falling into his life, who knows how Naaman's life would have ended up. So that is it for these 4 main characters. I also want to mention that Kennard, the kid Michael beat up, who was kind of in their group, but not that important, ended up killing Omar, which is kind of crazy because he is like 9 years old at max, maybe 8.5. I'm also curious what you guys have to say. Personally, I think Randy had it the worst, but all these characters had it bad to say the least. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Leave a like and have an amazing day. As always, TBE Mike out.